Is Trump taking away our freedom of speech? Trump's bruised beta male ego directly corresponds to the amount of cake, clone, and mismatched makeup on his hands. On a daily basis, he picks up his toys and runs to his nannies in the cabinet to tattletale. His thin ego means nationwide censorship to protect Trump from the mean bad people. As of today, our overall authoritarian risk is 81, which is borderline high critical. We will break it down for you after this next clip that breaks down our scale. Check out this clip.
I thought it would be helpful to review the scaling system that ChatGPT and I created. This scale assesses democratic norms, institutional functioning, and civil liberties against events that have taken place over the week. I check the authoritarian risk weekly since each day brings updates from all three branches of government and, of course, bully man baby Donald Trump's intimidation tactics through his Truth Social.
Executive power overreach and checks and balances. Over the past week, executive power has expanded sharply. Appeals to the Supreme Court on passport and deportation protections reveal how centralized authority is consolidated. Meanwhile, checks and balances remain under stress. A federal judge pushed back on unlawful mass firings of federal workers, but executive overreach continues to outpace accountability. This leaves the balance of power heavily tilted towards the presidency. Executive power overreach is rising at a critical 92, and checks and balances is also rising at a critical 84. Civil liberties, protest rights, and surveillance. Civil liberties are now at a critical risk of 93. The rollback of non-binary passport recognition and the FBI's new extremist label targeting transgender communities mark direct erosions of personal freedom. These policies chill protesting rights and justify new forms of surveillance. The net effect is shrinking space for dissent, especially among marginalized groups. Surveillance and privacy are also rising to a critical 82. Public erosion of norms, political violence, and extremism. Norms continue to erode, rising to a critical of 86. Following the murder of Charlie Kirk, misinformation campaigns have surged. Russian, Chinese, and Iranian networks are amplifying false narratives, deepening social division. Violent rhetoric is on the rise, fueling extremist threats, both online and offline. The result is a growing acceptance of authoritarian framing in public debate. As a result, political violence and extremism are rising to a critical 90. Law enforcement, militarization, press freedom, and judicial independence. Law enforcement is rising to a critical 85 and becoming more militarized with rhetoric of war on American cities, paired with expanded federal policing powers. Press freedom is rising to a high of 80 and is under pressure as reporters face intimidation for covering immigration and political violence. Judicial independence remains contested while courts show resilience in some rulings. Partisan pressure threatens long-term neutrality. The risk holds steady at a high 79. State resistance and election integrity. States remain one of the last major guardrails. Governors and local leaders are resisting federal rollbacks on immigration protections, and restrictive voting policies. And yet, federal preemption and litigation are narrowing their ability to defend election integrity. Resistance is holding, but the cracks are widening. This risk is rising slightly at a high of 77. Major events. Several events drove today's higher risk scores. First, the Supreme Court passport and TPS appeals. Next is the FBI proposal labeling transgender extremism, followed by federal court ruling against mass firings. And lastly, Charlie Kirk's murder and subsequent disinformation wave. Together, these mark a decisive turn towards authoritarian governance while testing the resilience of institutions. Across July, August, and September, the U.S. has moved from elevated to high critical risk territory. Early summer saw institutional checks still slowing authoritarian moves. By September, however, coordinated disinformation, executive expansion, and erosion of civil liberties drove scores upward. The big story is the pace. Authoritarian risks are no longer gradual. They're accelerating week by week. Tune in next week for our next update. In the meantime, build community, and if you are vulnerable to attack, develop a crisis plan that includes your emergency contacts and action steps your loved ones can take if you are detained. Partner and travel with a friendly neighborhood white person who specializes in care. And if you are a white person who specializes in caring, check on your vulnerable friends. We are not okay. Until next time, stay safe. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment. And if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.